Good morning. I'm Cheryl Wills, and I'm so honored to be here with you today as your mistress of ceremonies. Over the years, I have gotten to know so many of the people on this stage, so many of the people in this very audience. We are a community shaped by what happened here in our fair city on September 11th, 2001. It was a bright and sunny morning. My day began at home on Long Island. By the time I reached the New York One newsroom, both towers had been hit. We rushed downtown to do what we do. I was there shortly after the second tower fell. And for all of us, those images of 9/11 are indelible. The mayhem of first responders rushing in, of people running out. And for me, and so many of us here, they're more than images. They're painful memories. I want to tell you about someone that I recently interviewed a few weeks ago. For Michael O'Connor, the bright, sunny, late summer morning of 9/11 also started on Long Island. Michael was a 25-year-old probie at the time who had just recently made the transition from the NYPD to the FDNY. He rushed to his firehouse in Queens and from there straight to Lower Manhattan, starting on September 11th, but also on September 12th, September 13th, and on and on. In the days and weeks to follow, Michael was among the thousands of first responders digging through the rubble, searching for survivors in hopes of saving, even finding one of their own. He said there was nothing that was going to stop us from trying to get them home to their families. That's what he told me on television. Years after inhaling the fumes of that toxic pile, Michael, still a young man, woke up one day feeling, as he put it, as though he had been beaten with a baseball bat. He couldn't move. He had a 104-degree fever, and soon enough, he was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease. Michael's career was cut short. His life was in danger. His initial goal, he told me, was to hang on long enough to see the birth of his first child. As a country, we rewarded his heroism by making him walk the halls of Congress, fighting for the care and support that he and his colleagues so desperately needed and so categorically deserved. I've spent 3 decades covering the life of this city. What Michael had to go through made me angry as a journalist, as a New Yorker, and as the daughter of a New York City firefighter. Jon Stewart was so right, ladies and gentlemen, when he told lawmakers to do their jobs. He was right when he said, do those jobs with the same courage, grace, tenacity, and humility that people like Michael have shown. So today, I'm grateful. I'm relieved that as a country, we have righted this wrong. Today's ceremony is about honoring some of the people who fought so hard for the justice our first responders and survivors deserved. Having interviewed so many of them, I know each of them would say, each of them would insist that they did not do this alone. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in applauding every single person who stood at a rally, wrote a letter, traveled to Washington, who picked up the phone. You made this happen. The September 11th Victim Compensation Fund is now permanently funded. and we are a grateful city. And I'm honored, truly honored, to share this moment with you as we bestow the Bronze Medallion, New York City's highest civic honor, on the heroes seated right behind me. It is now my privilege and my pleasure to introduce the Mayor of the City of New York, Bill de Blasio.
Cheryl, thank you for bearing witness over these years, for telling the stories of these good men and women and their families, for talking about the injustice that so many experienced. Your anger and your passion, your love for all those who did so much for us, it helped spread a message that had to be spread. And you know, as the daughter of a firefighter, what it means to grow up in a family that gives so much to all of us. Your words have really, really helped us to get to this day. Let's thank Cheryl for all she has done. We're here at a time of year when we are thankful, when we all end up taking stock of what's happened this year, what's happened in our lives, what's happened for our families. And it's a time of year we want to celebrate. We want to be joyful. We celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and Three Kings Days, and we celebrate the faith that keeps us going. But we're also here gathered together because of an injustice that occurred, because of so much pain that was inflicted that should not have been, because those who did so much for us were not given what they deserved. So it's a bittersweet moment as we gather today. But we gather as a community. All of you formed a community, a righteous community of people fighting for some fairness, some decency, some recognition. We're going to honor some really wonderful people up here for all they have done. But every single person here was part of fighting for fairness, for all the hardworking men and women who put their lives on the line. So we're going to celebrate great people, great organizations that were there and fought all the way through to victory. But we also need to celebrate every single member of this good community who stood shoulder to shoulder. So look around you, look at each other who was there for this fight. Please give each other a round of applause. We know that we are here because of the worst day in our history as a city. Absolutely, without question, our worst day in the hundreds of years that New York City has existed. And yet, we saw that day and every day since the best of New York. The entire world watched as New York City set a standard for brotherhood, for kindness, for strength, for bravery, for courage. And then, for 18 long years, reminded our nation that you can't just give lip service to those who serve. You actually have to do something about it for them and their families. This community made a huge difference. It took longer than anyone would have liked. It took longer than it should have, but this community won in the end. We're here to honor today those who sustained this fight, those who believed that we could not give up. And it begins with honoring the men and women who did the work, the first responders who rushed in that day, no matter what the odds. The people worked on the pile, who led the cleanup, the men and women who worked at Fresh Kills and at the morgues. They all felt a commitment to the families and to all who had served. They didn't give up. We're honoring all those people. They may not have famous names, but we're honoring each and every one of them. We're honoring the unions that represent them, because I want to remind you, the health, the well-being of everyone who went there, to the pile, to the recovery effort, to the rescue effort, to find the remains of a loved one. The government was supposed to ensure their health. But it wasn't the government who sounded the alarm, it was the labor unions. It was the labor unions who said, something's wrong here. And I want to thank each and every one of them for fighting for their members. I'm going to call out names, and I ask you to applaud for them all. One who could not be with us today, but as the chair of the Municipal Labor Committee, plays such an important role and has for years in this fight, President of Sanitation Workers, Local 831 of the Teamsters, Harry Nespoli. To the co-chair of the Municipal Labor Committee and the executive director of DC 37 AFSCME, Henry Garrido. The president of the Uniformed Firefighters Association, Gerard Fitzgerald. The president of the Uniformed Fire Officers Association, Jake Lamonda. The president of AFSCME Local 2507, Uniform EMTs, Paramedic and Fire Inspectors, Oren Barzilay. The president of the Police Benevolent Association, Pat Lynch. The president of the Captains Endowment Association, Roy Richter. The president of the Lieutenants Benevolent Association, Lou Turco. President of the Sergeants Benevolent Association, Ed Mullins. The Vice President of the Detectives Endowment Association, Paul DiGiacomo. The President of the Correction Officers Benevolent Association, Elias Husamaddin. The President of the Correction Captains Association, Patrick Ferraiolo. The President of SEIU Local 246, Joe Colangelo. The President of Building and Construction Trades Council of Greater New York, Gary LaBarbera. The President of DC 37 Local 983, Joseph Palaio. And all the representatives of labor, thank you. Thank you for all you did for your members and all you did for New York City. Next, I want to note those who could be here and those who could not from the United States Senate and the United States House. We all know that there were members of both bodies who did not heed the call, who did not recognize the pain and suffering of the families, no matter how many extraordinary individuals appealed to them personally. There were some who looked away. But we're here to celebrate those who took up the cause, who believed, who fought for all the men and women who put themselves in harm's way. Two who could not be with us today because of the work they're doing in Washington at this hour, Senator Chuck Schumer and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. Let's give them a round of applause. You will hear in a moment from one of the great heroes of this fight. And she is wearing with such pride the jacket of the FDNY that is a famous image of her fighting at the front line in Washington for those who needed the help. She was tenacious. She never stopped fighting. She believed, and she believed in her whole heart. Let's thank Congressmember Carolyn Maloney. Not yet, not yet, not yet. And this fight was not business as usual. It was about heart and soul. It was about caring about human beings. It was not about politics. Too much politics got in the way, but everyone who fought for justice didn't do it out of political motivation. They did it out of human commitment. I say that because I want to commend the other member of Congress with us here. And this is a statement of pure nonpartisanship. Pete King, we will miss you. Thank you, Pete, for all you have done. And I want to call the roll of all the others who joined in this fight from the New York delegation, again, so many of whom could not be here because of activities in Washington today. First of all, one who fought so hard and made sure the bill got through committee, Congressmember Elliot Engel. Let's thank him. And I'm going to call out all the names. We can just do a rolling applause. Hopefully they'll hear down in Washington, D.C. Congressmember Jose Serrano. Congressmember Jerry Nadler. Congressmember Adriano Espaillat. Congressmember Max Rose. Congressmember Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Congressmember Grace Meng. Congressmember Nydia Velasquez. Congressmember Hakeem Jeffries. Congressmember Gregory Meeks, Congressmember Tom Suozzi, and Congressmember Yvette Clark. There were people and organizations, individuals who cared so much, who helped us put today's event together, who donated to make sure that we could honor people. I want to just ask you to give a resounding round of applause to all the sponsors of today's event. And then from the city government, each of whom has worked so hard to try and support those who have suffered and given so much. First of all, he served this city on 9/11 at Ground Zero, and has served for so many years since, thank God, our Fire Commissioner, Dan Nigro. NYPD Commissioner Dermot Shea. NYPD First Deputy Commissioner Ben Tucker. Sanitation Commissioner Catherine Garcia. Correction Commissioner Cynthia Brand. And Emergency Management Commissioner Deanne Criswell. And a special thank you to our colleagues in government. We have all worked in common cause, and I thank them for all they've done. The Executive Director of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Rick Cotton, and the Superintendent of the New York State Police, who is representing all of the state government here today, Keith Corlett. So I'm going to be brief before we give these medals, and we will hear from Congressmember Maloney as well on behalf of all of her colleagues. This is a somber ceremony in so many ways, even though we celebrate such good people and we celebrate a victory. But there's three things we need to keep in mind, and we need to keep this in mind very humbly. One, the folks we are honoring today, it's not everyone who deserves to be honored, because we have lost some of those who deserve the honor the most. We will recognize them, but they won't be here to accept their honor, and we are the lesser for that. There are people suffering with illness, grievous illness, who could not be here. There are heroes that we have lost, like Detective James Zadroga, firefighter Ray Pfeiffer, Detective Lou Alvarez, and EMT Deborah Reeve. This ceremony honors everyone, but this ceremony can't really be complete because they're not here. But I ask for a moment of silence for all we have lost. Thank you. A second point we must keep in the front of our minds. No one in this extraordinary community, no one did it alone. Every single person who fought for justice had the support of their families, their spouses, their loved ones. Every step of the way, they had the support of their unions. Even when our federal government did not do its job, so many others did their job and then some. And the last thing to keep in mind is this is by no means a moment of closure. It's a moment to recognize progress, but we have so much more to do for all those who are suffering and for their families, and we must continue. New York City must continue to stand by all those who served us. So even with this powerful mix of feelings, let's also be proud. Let's be proud of the good. Let's recognize the good, the extraordinary good that's been done. Let's recognize the persistence. You should not have to everyone up here, to everyone gathered, you should not have had to fight this fight, but thank God you did. There is a simple message in our founding documents of our republic. It says, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Supporting our heroes should have been self-evident. I can't believe that there wasn't an emergency vote of Congress and it didn't pass the first day. I don't think anyone else here can believe that, but people fought nonetheless. It should have been a no-brainer from the beginning. It should have been nonpartisan. It should have been by acclamation. But it wasn't. And so you fought, and you kept fighting. You kept showing up. Year after year, you refused to accept the injustice. And you got the job done. A lot of times, we say two powerful words. They are moving words. Never forget. But you didn't just treat never to forget as words. You made it something more. You made never forget not just a slogan. You made it a promise, and you kept your promise. And that's why we gather today to bestow the Bronze Medallion, the city's highest civic honor. It is given for exceptional citizenship and outstanding achievement that reaches people across all 5 boroughs. In the entire history of this city, there are no people and no organizations more worthy. When you think how many families now have a measure of peace, how many families can now make ends meet, how many people get the health care they deserve because of all we are honoring today. I'll conclude with this statement of honesty. Even the most beautiful honor, the most beautiful medallion will not bring back those who we lost. We know that. It won't end the suffering of those who right now are fighting for their lives. But today we'll recognize there are good people in the world. Today's gathering recognizes there are people who really understand what it means to see the person next to you as your brother or your sister, to believe that we have a debt to those who served us, and to make sure we pay that debt. It can never fully be repaid, for sure. But people need to know we will stand by them. And today we mark an example of goodness, persistence, of decency, of honor. To all those who are being honored today, your city thanks you. All 8.6 million New Yorkers, thank you. To everyone who is a part of this fight, thank you. And may we never have to fight again for justice for people who have done so much. May we always honor them, love them, embrace them, and support them. Thank you, and God bless you all.
And we are watching advocates for the 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund at a ceremony to receive the city's highest honor at the Beacon Theater on the Upper West Side. Mayor de Blasio will be handing out bronze medallions to those who helped ensure permanent funding in the formally named Never Forget the Heroes, James Zadroga, Ray Pfeiffer, and Lou Alvarez September 11th Victim Compensation Fund Act that was signed in July. Those are just some of the names being honored today, and in several cases, their families are accepting medals posthumously.